There is a kind of power that does not ask for permission. It simply arrives, and everyone in the room knows to move. Kang Jae-won was that kind of power, the most feared name in Seoul's underworld, a man whose tattoos told stories that no one alive dared ask him to explain. Cold as winter marble, precise as a blade, untouchable, until one night, the dark that had always been his weapon became his prison. For 4 years he lived without light, and the only warmth he allowed himself was a woman from across the world, a black American woman, soft where he was sharp, radiant where he was shadow. A woman he had no business wanting, a woman he could not stop needing. A black car cuts through neon-soaked Seoul streets, rain, speed, the city blurring past like a fever dream. Kang Jae-won, 34 years old, head of the Kang organization, the most sophisticated criminal network operating across Seoul, Busan, and 3 cities that don't appear on maps. He had earned every scar, every tattoo that wrapped his arms, his chest, climbed his neck like a map of every war he had survived. He had earned those too. That night he was coming back from the kind of meeting where the table is just a formality. The real conversation happened in what was left unsaid. And Jae-won always left it very, very clear. He was untouchable. He had always been untouchable. His phone buzzes. 1 glance down, 1 second of divided attention. Then, headlights. A truck crossing on red. A sound like the world ending. The impact was total, and then the silence after was worse. Hospital, sterile white, and the steady rhythm of machines keeping watch. He woke up on the second day. He could hear everything. The machines, the footsteps, the careful breathing of a doctor who did not want to deliver the news he was carrying. Doctor. Mr. Kang. The impact caused severe trauma to both optic nerves. We have consulted 3 specialists. The damage is not reversible, not with current options. Kang Jae-won said nothing. He had given orders that levelled businesses. He had sat across from men who wanted him dead and never blinked. He lay in that hospital bed and said absolutely nothing. Because for the first time in his life, there was nothing to say. 8 weeks later, a vast penthouse in Gangnam, heavy curtains, controlled silence, and a kingdom sealed against the world. He came home to an empire that didn't know how to serve a blind king. His lieutenants spoke too carefully around him. His housekeeper wept quietly in the kitchen, which he could hear perfectly, and which made him furious. His previous personal assistant had lasted 11 days. The one after that, 4. He didn't need help. That was what he told himself. He needed everyone to stop treating him like he was already gone. And then came Zola. Zola Barnes. 26 years old, from Atlanta, Georgia. A hospitality management graduate with a practicum placement in Seoul, and a student loan that did not care about her feelings. She was not sent by anyone powerful. She was not connected to any faction. She simply saw the listing, needed the income, and showed up. She was stunning. Not in the way that announces itself, but in the way that makes a room recalibrate. Deep brown skin that caught light like it was made for it. High cheekbones. Dark eyes that were steady and warm, and missed nothing. The kind of elegance that isn't learned, that is simply carried as naturally as breathing. She did not know any of this about herself. That was part of it. She is shown into his study, dark, tension like a held breath. He sits with his back to the door, facing the Han River he can no longer see. Head of staff. Mr. Kang, this is Zola Barnes. She will be your new personal assistant. Silence. He doesn't move. Jae-won. American. It wasn't a question. He had placed her accent in 2 syllables. Zola. Georgia. Oh yes, Jae-won. You know who I am. Zola. I know enough. Jae-won. And you came anyway. Zola. The listing said the pay was good and the work was hard. That's my kind of job. The faintest pause. Something almost like interest. Jae-won. You'll be gone in 2 weeks. Zola. I guess we'll see. She stayed. A montage of mornings and evenings. The slow, intimate architecture of 2 people learning each other. She was not what he expected. She did not tiptoe. She did not whisper. She did not look at him with that particular brand of careful sadness that made him feel like an exhibit. She treated him like a person, which sounds like a small thing. It was not a small thing. She learned that he took his tea at exactly 68 degrees. He could tell the difference, and he would not drink it otherwise. She learned that he processed information faster when it was spoken slowly, with pauses, not because his mind was slow, but because he was building pictures from words now, and pictures take space. She learned that the tattoos on his hands, the ones she could see when she set documents in front of him, were not decoration. Each one was a marker, a record. She never asked what they meant. He noticed that she never asked. She read his business reports to him in the evenings, her voice unhurried, precise, with a low warmth to it that made even dry contract language sound like something worth hearing. Jae-won. Paragraph 4. Read it again. Zola. The party of the second part reserves the right to dissolve the agreement within 30 days of any material breach, as defined in Appendix C. Jae-won. Stop. So what's in Appendix C? Zola. I already flagged it. Page 41. They buried a definition change in the 3rd revision. A beat. Jae-won. You caught that. Zola. I catch most things. He said nothing, but from that evening on, he stopped asking his lawyers to review first. He let her. Her silent love. Late, the city glowing 40 floors below. Zola sits alone in the small study off the kitchen, a cup of chamomile going cold beside her. She had not come to Seoul to fall in love. She had come to build a resume, pay down debt, and figure out what came next. She had not accounted for him, not the Mafia boss. She had made her peace with that complexity. But the man underneath it, the one who went completely still when she played music softly in the next room, the one who remembered, months later, a single offhand thing she had mentioned about her grandmother's cooking, the one whose whole body changed, just slightly, almost invisibly, when she walked into a room. She had started noticing that. She wished she hadn't. She speaks quietly, to no one. Zola. If you could see me right now, Jae-won, would this make sense to you, or would you send me away? She already knew the answer to the second question. The first one kept her awake. His hidden dependence, 2:47 a.m. The penthouse is dark and still. Jae-won sits at the edge of his bed, the city humming 40 floors below him, invisible. He had survived things that would have ended other men. He'd survived betrayal, violence, loss. He had rebuilt himself from less than nothing. Twice. He did not need anyone. That was not arrogance, it was architecture. It was how he had been built to last. But the dark was different at 3 a.m. It had a texture then that it didn't have during the day. Heavier, more total. The kind that pressed against the chest. And the only thing that reliably cut through it was her. The specific cadence of her voice. The way she hummed very softly when she was reading something she liked. The sound of her heels, always precise, always unhurried, moving through the hallway like a kind of proof that the world was still ordered and real. His hand moves to the intercom, stops. Then, Jae-won. Zola. 20 seconds. Then her voice, clear and unbothered, as if she had been awake anyway. Zola. I'm here. Give me a minute. She appeared in his doorway. She didn't ask what he needed. She sat in the chair by the window and opened whatever she had been reading. He lay back. The dark became manageable again. He never thanked her. She never required it. A Tuesday, February. The kind of cold that makes Seoul feel personal. Zola is at her desk when the call comes through from Tokyo. 4 years. 4 years of contracts and cold mornings and late nights. 4 years of knowing someone so completely that she could tell from 20 feet away whether the meeting had gone well or badly, just from the way he walked through the door. 4 years of telling herself it was just a job. Then the call came. A specialist in Tokyo. A surgical team that had spent 3 years developing a procedure for precisely this category of optic nerve damage. Recent trials. Strong results. Not a guarantee. But a real, documented, a peer-reviewed chance. Jae-won listens to the full briefing without interrupting. When it ends, there is a long silence. Zola. I can pull the trial data tonight if you want to review. Jae-won. What's the failure rate? Zola. 38%. In the failed cases, there was no further deterioration. Just no change. Jae-won. And the 62%? Zola. Full recovery, some partial. The median outcome was better than they projected. He turns toward the window. That old habit, facing where the light should be. Jae-won. Book it. Zola. Jae-won. Jae-won. Book it, Zola. She looks at him for a long moment. Zola. I'll have everything arranged by morning. She turned back to her screen. Her hands were steady. She made sure of that. Tokyo. A private clinic. On the kind of clean that feels architectural. Zola sits in the waiting area with a book she has not read a single page of. She had not been asked to come. She had simply packed a bag and appeared at the car. He had paused when he heard her. Then he had gotten in, which meant yes. The morning of the surgery, she walked beside him from the room to the theatre doors. She did not take his arm. He hadn't asked for that in over 2 years. He didn't need the guidance anymore. He had mapped every route he ever needed to take. At the doors, he stopped. She thought he was going to say something practical. A final instruction. A document to check. Something to handle while he was under. He turns his head toward her. His jaw is set. His eyes, unseeing, find her face anyway, the way they always do. He said nothing. And then he went through the doors. She sat back down. She opened her book. She read the same sentence 11 times. 5 hours and 23 minutes. She counted all of them. Recovery room, white, still. The soft sound of monitors. Then a long, slow breath. The lead surgeon removed the bandaging in layers, carefully, like the whole room was holding its breath. Surgeon. Mr. Kang, there's no rush. When you're ready. Silence, the kind that has weight. Then, slowly, his eyes open. The first thing he saw was white. Then the ceiling taking shape. Then edges, corners, the grain of the wall. The surgeon's face creased with cautious relief. He looked down at his hands, his own hands, the tattoos, dragons coiling up his forearms, characters inked in black along his knuckles. He had not seen them in 4 years, and he had forgotten how much of his own story was written on his skin. Something moves through his face, deep, controlled, almost imperceptible, but it moves. Jae-won. I can see. From the doorway, Zola. She had been let in the moment the surgeon signalled. She stands very still, one hand pressed flat against her collarbone. She was trying not to cry. She was not entirely succeeding. He had not looked at her yet, but she was looking at him, the way she always had. Seoul. The car pulls through familiar streets, everything the same, nothing the same. He looked at the city the whole drive back, the Han River, the bridges lit up at dusk, the towers of Gangnam rising in the amber winter light. The neon of the streets below, red, gold, white, blurring past like the city was showing off. He had missed it. He hadn't let himself know how much. Zola sat across from him in the car. She was looking out her own window, giving him the silence he needed, the way she always knew to. He looked at her profile, just for a moment. Then he looked back at the city, but the moment had already registered. Something had already shifted, quietly, irreversibly, the way the first crack in ice is silent before everything gives way. The penthouse, late afternoon, gold light pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything warm, everything still. He had been walking the apartment, slowly, taking it all in. The objects he had learned by touch, now given their full reality. The art on the walls, the view from every window, the city laid out beneath him like something he had built with his hands. Why, he heard her before he reached the hallway. That specific rhythm, the unhurried precision of her steps, the soft sound of papers being sorted, the quiet, private hum, barely audible, that meant she was comfortable. He turned the corner, and he saw her. She was standing at the hall table, sorting through a stack of correspondence, completely absorbed. Her natural hair was pinned up, a few strands loose at her temple. She wore a deep green blouse, sleeves rolled to the elbow, a single gold chain catching the afternoon light at her throat. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Not because she was objectively stunning, though she was. Not because of the elegant line of her neck, or the way the light moved across her dark skin, like it had opinions about where to land. But because he knew her. He knew the exact sound of her exhale when something frustrated her. He knew that she took her coffee sweet and her counsel straight. He knew that she cried at documentaries about animals and thought he didn't know. He did know. He had always known. He had known all of this in the dark. Now he could see her. And the knowing and the seeing collided in his chest like something structural giving way. A paper slips from her hand. She bends to pick it up, looks up, and finds him standing there, looking at her, with eyes that can see. His face, the stillness of a man holding something back with everything he has. He had rules. He had built his entire life on rules, clear lines, clean separations. The people who worked for him were not people he allowed himself to want. That boundary existed for a reason, and multiple reasons, all of them valid, all of them still true. She was under his roof. She was under his protection. She was from a different world, a different country, and she deserved to go back to it whole and untangled from his. He told himself all of this, in order, firmly. Jae-won. She is staff, that is all. That has always been all. But his eyes had not moved from her face. And Kang Jae-won, who had given orders that moved cities, who had never once failed to control a room, could not seem to control this. 4 years of her voice in the dark. 4 years of her presence, making the unbearable bearable. 4 years of knowing her without seeing her. And now he could see her, and she was everything the dark had only let him sense. The hallway, the gold light, neither of them moving. The city humming 40 floors below, indifferent. Zola's heart was doing something she refused to acknowledge. She had told herself on the flight back from Tokyo that this would be simple. He would come home. He would see again. Life would continue. She would be his assistant and he would be her employer, and the thing she had spent 4 years carefully not naming would stay carefully unnamed. She had a plan. The plan did not survive him looking at her like that, like he was seeing her for the first time, and like the first time was too much and not enough all at once. Her voice comes out quieter than she intends. Zola. You can see now. She already knows the answer. She just needed something to say. He looks at her for one long, open, unguarded moment. Then the wall comes back up. He straightens. His face closes. He walks past her down the hall. But she saw it. In the half second before the wall came up, she saw it, and now she couldn't unsee it. The music rises, something slow and aching and inevitable, the sound of a door opening that cannot be closed again. Kang Jae-won had survived things that destroyed other men. He had survived poverty, violence, betrayal. He had survived 4 years of darkness. But he had survived all of those things because he could see them coming. He could name them, prepare for them, build walls against them. This was different. This had been living in his house for 4 years, reading to him in the evenings, sitting with him at 3 a.m. without asking why, learning the exact temperature of his tea. This had crept past every wall he had, while he was busy surviving everything else. And now he could see her. God help him, now he could see her. The most dangerous things are the ones that don't look like danger. They look like warmth. They look like gold light in a hallway. They look like her. Part 2 is coming. Subscribe/watch next. If this story found you, you were meant to be here. Subscribe right now so part 2 finds you too, because the moment Kang Jae-won stops fighting what he feels and starts acting on it, this story becomes something else entirely. Like this video if you felt every single second of that hallway scene. Drop a comment. I want to know, does Zola know he saw her? Or does she think she hid it in time? The next chapter is already written. Don't be the one who missed it.